how does what you know about psychology and neuroscience change the way you present?
I don't know if it changes or enhances who I am, but essentially, this idea that I have to go, as I shared earlier, to a place that doesn't exist with an idea that doesn't exist with people that I don't know, and the theory of mind and the way that the frontal lobe envisions a possibility and how we make that vision a reality, at least momentarily, so that people can walk away and believe that that possibility today could be a reality tomorrow. So in many ways, I think of myself when I present as an educator, as a neuropsychologist, to make sure that I connect with those people in a way that our two minds become equal. As I shared with you earlier, as the leader of APA, my job was to hear 120,000 voices and have one unified vision.
And now, as a clinical psychologist, as well as a leader of such a large association, the American Psychological Association, you've, I'm sure, had to be a liaison to other organizations and to other groups. How did you communicate technical information to non-technical audiences? Was there anything that you did that most people don't do?
Well, that's really, really difficult to do and really, really critical. For example, I had an opportunity recently to spend time with the basically a deputy manager for the Medicare program and try to convince them that a proposal that was in front of him and his agency, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, was a viable one. And what I did is convert it into a real life problem that was eminently solvable. And it came down to this. With $6 million, you could make sure that your constituency could get a service that is so needed with an aging population. $6 million is all you need to have a critical service for all the people that are involved in the Medicare program. The flip side is, I know it's not your intention to wipe out an entire segment of healthcare just for $6 million. So I made a complicated problem a doable one, a manageable one. So I brought him into this hypothetical world of mine, and I made it as real as possible and as solvable as possible. Instead of just mounting numbers and complex formulas, got down to, we got so many people that need this service, and $6 million could solve that problem. That's how we did it.
There's a gentleman by the name of Dr. Randy Harvey, who was a principal of a high school or a school system. It was also is currently a trial attorney and was a world champion of public speaking, which means he was basically like one of the best out of 30,000 contestants from over 100 countries in the world. And one of the things he had told me was that the key to storytelling, to getting people to envision what you're talking about, is to give them a level of detail that allows them to be part of the story without giving them too much detail so that they begin to disassociate from it. Like, you know, for example, if you're using a car in the story, if you give just enough detail so that the chances are they've seen that kind of car before, they're going to be more likely to bring or have a stronger anchor to an existing memory, versus if you give them a car that they've never seen before and they have no associations with it, it's harder for them to be embedded in the story. Does that I mean, from your vantage point, does that actually make sense?
Totally agree. Let me give you an example. The death penalty work that I do, I've done 100 and some death penalty cases. And when you present this to the jury, you're presenting, in many cases, information that span of data gathering over a 5-year period by many individuals, including myself. And how do you make that believable yet digestible? So if you give them tons of data, bunches of numbers and graphs, you're overwhelmed the jury. The other side of the coin is if you don't give them enough, you're not a believable source. So how do you tell a story that is believable, digestible, honest, and empirical? That's the goal.
You know, you have 2 children. One child is in, or you have 3 children, but one child is in a high-tech startup. How would you advise your son to pitch his idea of a company to an investor? What would you tell him that would be, what would you tell him that wouldn't be obvious to most people?
Well, I'll give you 2 examples. One is my son and one is his wife. My son is with a startup that is considering going public. So the question is, how do you sell this idea to investors and subsequently to the public? And the flip side is his wife, who works in Google in brand marketing. And essentially, how do you sell the brand of Google into so many arenas that they have? And again, I think is making value, if you will, but making a story as we've discussed, developing the trust, making sure there's a medium and a foundational, there's a message. But again, we go back to what I shared with you earlier, taking the investor, taking the public into a place that they have not thought about, that they have not envisioned, taking them there, making that possibility a reality today for eventual application in the future. As an investor, I want to make sure that if I put my money in today, that my return tomorrow will be significant. So I've got to make tomorrow believable to you today. How do I do that?